You like jazz? Do you like jazz? Because I love jazz.
Real chill music. Hello, everyone. Hello, BOC,
Hello,
and
everyone.
anybody else watching. I have my co-host with me again today. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm here every day.
Not every day, because I don't do my shows every day, but pretty nearly every day, like 4 days a week.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone watches every single day. We're being watched every single day, and it's not just by the people that watch us, but it's also by the Celestials. They're watching you right now, Catherine.
Uh-huh. And we have Liam in the chat. Who's that? And
Oh, crap.
we have Paula in the
You
chat.
have an imposter in the chat.
Cool. So, almost ready to do this thing?
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, we need to turn down that music.
I'll turn it down to 19.
Yeah, that's good. All right. So, next.
So I'll read from the right, you can read from the left.
He makes my decisions for me, guys.
Yep.
Okay. Romans part 19, chapter 3, verse 4. Now let God be true, yet every human a liar, even as it is written, that so thou shouldst be justified in thy sayings, and shall be... What is this language? And shalt be conquering when thou art being judged. I don't like that. I can't say it. Newsbreak. Camels disprove God's existence. You would think that because God is such an epically famous and stupendously powerful being, that it would take something really strong, powerful, and universally revered here on earth to unseat him from his throne, or even more radically, to disprove his very existence. You would think it would take a huge bulldozer with really giant tires made in extremely huge, respected, and awesome tire factories and world-famous
cities such as Archon, Ohio. Or maybe it would take a very large and shiny Dodge Ram truck with a Hemi engine that makes the truck roll effortlessly over dirt and rocks, and up really big hills while making lots of manly noise. What is powerful enough on this amazing earth to unseat God? Perhaps a Super Bowl winning football team like the Seattle Seahawks and their famous defense back Richard Sherman, who is the king of the planet at catching footballs thrown by quarterbacks of opposing teams. Mr. Sherman does this in very large, super rich car companies, making lots and lots of money while saving humanity and condemning international reverence.
I think you missed a line, but anyway, it's all right.
While no, I didn't. While saving humanity and commanding international reverence and respect from the global community, including the African American community, the Hispanic community, and community organizers. I speak of companies such as Verizon, MetLife, FedEx, AT&T, and First Energy. You would think that to disprove God, it would at least require a really famous and environmentally conscious mega movie star like Matt Damon, or a super popular and famous, beautiful, rich, and luscious Sports Illustrated swimsuit model like Monica Bellucci, or a rare, intelligent, smart, super educated, brilliant thinker, university trained, genius commanding universal respect and love, who has also cried to speaking of Stephen Hawking. Nope, it only takes a camel, or the lack of one. I had to break this to you, my faithful readers, but God does not exist. Don't blame me, blame the fact. You heard it first, folks. Martin Zender is an atheist.
Two extremely educated, celebrated, respected, highly esteemed Israeli archaeologists named Erez ben Yosef and Elida Sapir Hen, respectively, of the very much esteemed, famous, and universally renowned institution of human learning known as Tel Aviv University. That's right, it's a university. Department of Archaeology and Near Eastern Cultures found out that God is a liar. Gee, that was a mouthful. Here is a quote from the article published on February 6th of this year by, are you ready for this? Laughing my ass off. Oh, God. Fox News. Lol. Archaeologists from Israel's top university have used radiocarbon dating to pinpoint the arrival of domestic camels in the Middle East, and they say the science directly contradicts the Bible's version of events. Camels are mentioned as pack animals in the biblical stories of Abraham, Joseph, and Jacob, Old Testament stories that historians peg to between 2000 and 1500 BC, but excuse me, but Erez ben Yosef and Lidad Sapir Hen of Tel Aviv University's Department of Archaeology and Near Eastern Cultures say camels weren't domesticated in Israel until centuries later, more like 900 BC. In addition to challenging the Bible's historic, how do you say that? I can't say it. Liam?
Historically.
You know?
Historicity.
Yeah.
Historicity. What the hell? Is that even a word?
This anachronism is direct proof that the test was compiled well after the events it describes, reads a press release announcing the research. The Old Testament contains stories. The Bible says one thing, yes, but Erez ben Yosef and Lida Sapir Hen of Tel Aviv University's Department of
Archaeology and Near Eastern Cultures. OMG, shut up. Say something completely different. Take that, Bible. Here are some of the esteemed and very famous publications and their headlines concerning these camels. Major discrepancy in the Bible from the Huffington Post. Direct proof by what? Direct proof. Bible was written centuries after events described from the International Business Times. Camel archaeology contradicts the Bible. The Times of Israel. That is really strange. Camel discovery may prove biblical stories false. News free from Las Vegas. Camel bones challenge the biblical's timeline from Newser. Historical error in Bible's Old Testament revealed from Fashion Times. Wow, the Fashion Times, News-Free Las Vegas, International Business Times. God must be chewing his fingernails in worry. Did you have any idea that such esteemed publications as these have come out against him? This is a major blow to God's plans to convince all the people of the earth that he exists. Because without all the people of earth believing that he exists, God would have a lot of catching up to do, a lot of new public relations tricks to try, and much more taking the world taking the world seriously if he is to accomplish his lifelong goal of convincing everyone that he is real. He would have to choose people better than Peter and Paul, those losers, lol. To make himself look better to the famous people and the rich, journalists and celebrities and professors and television and movie personalities of this
gorgeous planet, who yet doubt his existence. Don't you feel sorry for God? I do, but this is nothing compared to how God feels. I know him, and he is worried. Never has a more impressive barrage of historical and stunning facts come forth from so many esteemed and highly educated people concerning camel bones. I'm not even sure I'm saved now, to tell you the truth. I'm becoming tempted to believe that the daffodil was a complete accident and that my parents descended from baboons. All because of those stupid camels and the dumb Old Testament writers who were not smart enough to align themselves with respected Jewish archaeologists from such a famous Israeli city as Tel Aviv. Of course, as Carl Bashir writes in his blog, Dear Ephesus, concerning this raging controversy, could Abraham have required Could Abraham have acquired camels from Egypt and brought them to Israel without them becoming widely used until much later? Most of the articles claim that Abraham, among the other patriarchs, did not have camels in Israel until Egypt introduced them abruptly, perhaps due to trade. Archaeological evidence suggests that Egypt did have domesticated camels. This assumes then that when Abraham went to Egypt, he did not acquire a single camel. On the contrary, is it possible that Abraham, during his visit to Egypt, acquired Egyptian domesticated camels? I think so, especially since Genesis 12:16 explicitly mentions Abraham's camels while in Egypt. Since Egypt was the trade center of the world at that time, it is entirely possible to see how domesticated camels were present in the first millennium BCE Egypt. Thank God for Kal Bashirs. Maybe God made the daffodil after all. Maybe I am saved from sin and death after all. Thank God that Kal Bashirs wrote this. He is not very famous, but he has a good thought here. He has saved my Bible. God too is relieved. Now, because of Kal Bashirs, God can be sure he exists. This is a major public relations coup for the deity. It was a close call. I hate it when this happens. If I hate it, imagine how God feels. One of the things I love about God is that he can sustain so many lies about him without losing his mind. He's the most maligned being in the universe and yet refuses to hurl
lightning bolts at his numerous detractors. He is conciliated to the world now through the sacrifice of his son, 2 Corinthians 5:19, which is the only reason he isn't a chain smoker. I know what it is to be lied about, as do most of you. The human urge is to take revenge on the weavers of tangled webs. If I had lightning bolts at my disposal, one or two acquaintances would have signed scalps and melting tennis shoes, all with a view towards their betterment, of course. God, on the other hand, sits back and drinks cool beverages. He knows how unsaleable truth is. He knows the liars are burning unnecessarily calories. None of their energy matters. They run, jump, cry, and scream. They make up stuff without properly researching the veracity of their inventions. And then they look to God, who may or may not exist, for approval. A trap door opens and swallows them. Next, never is time more wasted than in forwarding deception. It is anti-time. This is very strange words. Inadvertence, perchance. It is unnecessary for liars to be aware of their fabrications. A liar is a liar, whether she wakes up calling herself one or not. Many people believe their own lies. Does that turn a lie into truth? I envy God. I can't wait to be with him. I can't wait to possess the mind of Christ. But back to God. God sees clearly to the time of truth vindicated, lies exposed, and liars confronting large mirrors with trapdoors. Thus, he is smiling and happy. The liars will eventually be delivered of their own delusions. Truth-tellers and lovers shall be magnified and glorified. The great white throne in God's timetable is tomorrow. I wish I could see it in that way. Instead, I am watching people get away with murder. Truth will at last prevail, but not tomorrow. Liars are strengthened. Truth lovers are tried, and some of them hanged. And innocent people dangle from knotted ropes. I am trying to become an imitator of God. Some days it works, and other days no. I don't quite have the cool drink thing down yet. I think I grimace far too often. For peace, this is one of the most important areas in which to make progress, to envision the exposure of lies and the justification of truth. Happiness is to see the
end of these matters and to savor the future outcome today before the outcome's appointed time. In this evil era, justice is reversed. The innocent are killed while the guilty indulge in shopping sprees. Such vexation touches the trauma of Christ. For him, all that anguish is past. Not for me. Sorry to keep repeating myself. I look at verses like this, however, and am comforted. Let God be true, yet every man a liar. I love how that to God it's not a numbers game. I thank God for Paul relaying to us how utterly inconsequential are the tales of today's fairy tales. Truth laughs at opposing hordes. The hordes can shout, scream, sponsor huge conferences and rallies at five-star hotels and football stadiums attended by celebrated entertainers and politicians. No matter. A lie is ever a lie and will eventually be disclosed as such. Luke chapter 8, verse 17. For nothing is hidden which shall not become apparent, neither concealed which should not by all means be known and come to be apparent. This verse comforts the hell out of me. I will have some nice lady needlepoint it for me and frame it. I will stare at it every day. Such a verse can only comfort one who has nothing to hide, and for whom truth is as vital as life itself. That's me. Sorry if you don't like my audacity in saying so. I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 14:6. This verse is about Christ, not me. I know some of you think I meant it about me, but no, it's about Christ. The apostle stands alone. When Paul was imprisoned in Rome, nearly all his friends forsook him. His only solace was that the Lord stood by me. 2 Timothy 4:17. There were two people in that prison cell, the Lord Jesus Christ and Paul. That was good enough for Paul. Sometimes it had to be good enough for us. Sometimes there is no alternative. Stay strong, therefore, in the face of whatever calumny assails you. Stare past the misplaced assurance of those who would do anything to undermine you. Lies are built upon nothing. God, on the other hand, sinks truth into bedrock. Neither hurricane, wind, nor quake of earth can unseat that which God sinks so deeply, and which has
been recorded in stone before the eons. You're imagining things. I taped a Francis Bacon quote to the front of my Greek scriptures. It's still here. Here it is. Whoever shall entertain high and vaporous images instead of a laborious and sober inquiry of truth shall beget hopes and beliefs of strange and impossible shapes. These strange and impossible shapes apply both to the lies told about you, the servant of God, and to those published abroad concerning God himself. Myth taken. The Christian religion is founded upon myths. Christianity contains not a single truth. The creeds sound like truth, but the promises are empty. The grace, required works, God's unconditional love, depends on people loving him in return. These are the whitewashed tombs of the Pharisees. They are white on the outside, yet crammed with the bones of the dead. Satan opens up a myth stand, and Christians fall in line to buy. One of everything. How could this happen? Satan disguises himself in a Jesus suit. The problem with the Jesus suit, for those who love
truth, is that it looks nothing like the real Jesus, who was ugly. Isaiah 53:2-3. The blue eyes, dusky skin, and well-trimmed beard of Satan's Jesus appeals to Christian lust. Christians think sex is the only lust. It is the least of the lusts. Religious lust makes sexual lust look like fairy dust. Pastor Joe and Sister Betty are too mesmerized by how smoothly the fake Jesus talks and how special he makes them feel to even think to pull on his beard or yank on his long hair. In 2 Timothy 4:3-4, Paul predicted the eventual manifestation of this very crap. For the era will be when they will not tolerate sound teaching, but their hearing being tickled, they will heap up for themselves teachers in accord with their own desires, and, indeed, they will be turning their hearing away from the truth, it will be turned aside to myths. Who could ever have imagined that God would try the word tickled in a furnace 7 times and then approve it for his divine vocabulary? Yet what word better describes undiscerning Christian ears? Sister Betty, Pastor Smith's sermon today really tickled my hearing. Brother Bill, I know what you mean. I got a tickle up my leg. Sister Nellie, yeah, all got nothing on me. The hair's up, the back of my neck raised up. Brother Andrew, I cried. Sister Ruth, I felt like a feather was massaging my soul. That's how special my tickle was. Brother Andrew, stop it, Nellie, you are going to make me cry again. Sister Ruth, I heard a Martin Zender message yesterday. Brothers Andrew and Bill together. Oh, God. Brother Bill, did you get a tickle? Sister Ruth, no, he was so off-putting. Brother Bill, he thinks he is Jesus Christ. He thinks he is God. He thinks he created Neptune. Sister Nellie, he made me think, and I should enough hated that. It done saddened me. I'm depressed now. Brother Andrew, thinking is the opposite of a tickle. Sister Nellie, that's right, Andy. Brother Bill, Martin Zender is not popular. Brother Andrew, correct, Bill. He did not attend any famous schools of Christian learning. Sister Nellie, he got lots to learn, that young man. Brother Bill, oops, it's Friday. It's time to heap up another teacher in accord with their own desires. Sister Ruth, are you talking about free will, eternal torment, and the Trinity, Brother Bill?
Hey, Caleb. Hey, Caleb.
That was fun.
Tough guy.
How's it going? Do you want to read the next bit just after I'm done with this bit?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Martin Zender's quite a comedian.
Brother Bill. Why, yes, I am, Sister Ruth. What else would I be talking about? Sister Nellie, sure Martin Zender will go to hell for eternity. You can bet. Sister Ruth. Oh, my Lord, I just got a huge tickle. Brother Andrew, sit yourself down, Rufy. Don't embarrass yourself. Heaps of nothing.
Okay.
Note the phrase, heap up for themselves. A heap of teachers speaks of a worthless pile. It's a hard term here, employed by Paul, not very sensitive at all to the poor teachers in the heap. A heap equals nothing. A bigger heap equals bigger nothing. The more teachers teaching the falsehood, the more falsehood drives humanity from God. The majority of humanity peddles lies like that, the Holy Trinity. Let God be true, yet every man a liar. Romans 3:4. Satan perfected the deception with the invention of religion. The greatest lie told about God is the teaching of eternal torment. God's love includes unending, flaming torture for most humans, including your children. Nothing in the universe is more wrong than this. Second on the list is the teaching of human sovereignty, i.e., human free will, that the human will can operate independently of God, so that God has no control whatsoever over 8 billion human beings. Third on the list of grand, terrible lies is the doctrine of the Trinity, deserving its own paragraph. The Trinity claims Jesus Christ to be the opposite of what he said he was. He claimed to be the Son of God, namely God himself. This portion robs him of his. Go ahead, Caleb.
Wait, where are you at?
Just 6 on the left-hand side where it says Premier Glory. Right there.
We're saying perfected. You're right there.
Where it says Premier Glory. So page 6, just down below that. Premier Glory.
Oh, all right. I see now. I see it. Premier glory, which is doing his Father's will. If he is his own Father, whose will is he doing? His own. This fails to impress me. Even I can do my own will. The Trinity, rather than elevating Christ, makes him out to be a fool and insults his faith and obedience. And giving himself up to a most literal death for 3 days, the doctrine of the Trinity.
You're reading the wrong bit.
I am? Oh, my bad.
Just stick to the left-hand side. It goes from left downwards. So left down.
On the record, no one seems to mind about the Trinity. I, however, object. How do you say that word?
Strenuously
Strenuously to it. I am on record as objecting strenuously at the dais of Christ, I will be happy for my earthly struggles against the popular heresy. It costs me now, even among some so-called believers. Martin, stop turning people off and hurting their feelings, but I will be famous in the next eon as one of the most outspoken objectors to the Trinity who walked the earth. Many then will wish they had been as outspoken as I, but for them it will be too late. They regret they were so timid. They'll regret they cared so much for popularity and not the ruffling feathers on the grand and glorious earth that somehow overly impressed them, not me. I'll be shining in my glory then. Right now I am racking up my stock for then. I'm teaching boldly. I'm following Christ, not humans. I will not be swayed by even the well-meaning stop-its of some of my so-called friends.
Below the video, there's more. I'll read it. Strange and impossible. The doctrines of eternal torment, human free will, and the Trinity are strange and impossible. In light of the suffering and dying of Christ on the cross for sin, the doctrine of eternal torment cannot be explained. It is strange and impossible. In light of the truth of God knowing and directing everything in the universe, the doctrine of human free will is strange and impossible. In light of the faith of Christ in going to the cross, Liam?
In going to the cross and giving himself up to a most literal death for 3 whole days, the doctrine of the Trinity is strange and impossible. The aforemost mentioned teachings are estranged, not for their vaunted logic, none of them make sense, but for their sheer popularity. Herein lay the genius of Satan, and the meaning of the phrase, the systemizing of the deception, found in Ephesians 4:14, that we should all attain to the unity of the faith and of the realization of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature of the completement of the Christ, that we may by no means still be minors, surging hither and thither, and being carried about by every wind of teaching, by human caprice, by craftiness, with a view to the systemizing of the deception. To make lies popular, Satan packs them into a system. I am talking about church. Satan has made sure that the lies about God are popular. Everyone longs to be popular. Studying is not popular. Sitting alone in a room is not popular. Reading too much is just not spiritual. To an attention deficit disordered world, laborious and sober inquiry of truth is drudgery. It's hard. No one wants to do it. We want our truth, fast and furious. Again, it must be popular. It must generate the much desired tickle. Not only those who put the soul on hold and care enough to inquire will find truth. The lie, according to Francis Bacon, is akin to high and vaporous imaginations. I told you that the lie has no real foundation. It is high and vaporous. It only appears high. It is a Hollywood wall that looks good but has nothing behind it in support. Looks are good enough for most people. If it looks like a neighborhood in New York City, then it must be a neighborhood in New York City. The popularity-loving people do not even bother to look around the corner. This is when they would see the 2x4s and the plywood. Never mind that. They never get around to it. They don't care enough. They will gladly embrace false witnesses. God hates false witnesses. I can't even speak today. God hates false witnesses and witnesses. Wait, what? God hates false witnesses and witnesses. Okay. The ninth commandment of the Great Ten is, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." And you can see that in Exodus 20:16. I'm not bringing us under law. I'm just telling you what God is on record as hating. It's a grievous sin to try to make people think something wrong about another.
person. You may believe it yourself, but did you look into it? Did you embark upon a laborious and sober inquiry into truth? Or did you merely entertain high and vaporous imaginations based on what someone else told you? Do you embrace facts now, or has the false information you casually consumed made you beget hopes and beliefs of strange and impossible shapes? After all, it was false witness that doomed Christ. Mark 14:55-59. Now the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death, and they found it not. For many testified against him falsely, and the testimonies were not consistent. And some, rising, testified against him falsely, saying that, we hear him saying that I shall be demolishing this temple made by hands, and during 3 days I shall be building another not made by hands. And neither thus was their testimony consistent. Inference, hearsay, misinterpretation. Who checks up on the facts? No one. Who bothers to go to the source to find out what was really said or what was really meant? No one. Falsehood is so easy. Lies come cheaply. Any person can pick up lies on the run. Lies can be gathered willy-nilly while moving at high rates of speed. People hear what they want to believe and believe what they want to hear. People run from God because of the false witnesses of his so-called friends. Even if there are millions and millions of these friends, and there are, God will always be true. I love this truth. Choking up here. I love that numbers don't matter to God. I love that truth can and does stand alone. I thank God for the precedent that he has been so severely lied about and can handle it. If he can handle it, and if he gives me his spirit, then maybe I can handle it. His son, Jesus Christ, was severely lied about, disparaged, misrepresented. He stood alone. They crucified him as a criminal. They said he had a demon, John 8:48. I can relate to this, as can many of you. The apostle was jailed as an evildoer, 2 Timothy 2:9. In the end, Christ knew who he was, and Paul knew who he was. This is what got them through. They knew who they were. You have to know who you are in Christ. Believe what God says about you. Romans chapters 4-8 will acquaint you with this. Once you learn what God says about you, repeat these things to yourself often.
Go ahead, Caleb. There's just a little bit left, just on the right-hand side, starting with the word eventually.
You don't have to read the orange bit.
All right. Eventually, the numbers did not bother Paul so much. Eventually, the false witnesses did not bother him as it once did. It was fine if only one stood with him. It became enough. May it do the same for us. Martin Zender. Next week, false witness is worse than you think.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a break for a sec.
Yeah, sure. I need to.
And I don't know how you guys can read that text. That is so small.
That's because you're on your phone.
It's impossible to read.
All right, I'll be back.
So what about you, Caleb? Have you been enjoying the conference?
I've been watching some here and there.
Nice.
I know the preacher asked the guy on Ace Theo's channel. He wanted to debate me on God not being a Trinity.
So the rhetorist wanted to debate you about the Trinity.
Yeah, that's what I meant to
was
say.
he
I didn't say
saying
it. I was making up a bunch of arguments that don't even work.
Yeah, the Trinity doctrine is very confusing, and it gets when people try to explain it, it's impossible, and it's also impossible to debunk it to someone who is virulently a believer of the Trinity. It's impossible. So I kind of just sit back and just let him speak. I just keep on saying to him, "Can God die? Can God die? Can God die? Can God die?" And it's just like that one truth that will go completely over their heads, and then they'll justify it. They'll say, well, Jesus did die, but it wasn't really Jesus Christ that died, his spirit that died. It was just his body that died, or it was just the man that died, but the God him still lived, you know, and they'll try and justify it. They always do. And they're very good at it. They're very, very good at it. It's going to be fun when I start to make my Trinity videos, whenever that happens.
Oh, you're going to start doing it? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't know when, though, because there's so many things I have to do. I mean, there's still so many things to say about hell, and then I'll move on to the immortality of the soul, and then I'll talk about God's grace and the two separate evangels. There's so many things I can talk about, so that's like way down low on my list of things to talk about.
Going after the eternal hell.
Yep.
Hate that one the most, right?
Yeah, well, it's the easiest one to debunk, I think. So that's why I'm starting with it. It's the easiest one to debunk. All you gotta do is read the scriptures.
Making a coffee.
Okay.
You were about to tell me to unmute it, weren't you?
Yes, I was. all what I saw was your mouth going.
Oh.
Not very many people tuned in. They must be all watching the conference then.
Oh yeah. Everyone will be watching the conference.
That'll be why.
And it goes on until tomorrow, or?
No, this is the last day today.
Oh, okay.
It's the last day.
So we've got how many more pages? We've got 4 pages left.
Yeah, we'll read those 4 pages. Let's do it.
5 pages.
5
Sorry.
pages. Let's do it.
All right.
We're not done. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Let me play the music. All you gotta do is read the scriptures.
I'll just make it a bit bigger.
I'll read on the right-hand side. Like before.
All right. Romans part 20, chapter 3, verse 4. Again. Now let God be true, yet every human a liar, even as it is written, that so thou shouldst be justified in thy sayings, and shall be conquering when thou art be judged. False witness. I promised a couple of weeks ago that I would answer 8 questions Paul posed in Romans chapter 3, verse 5 to 9. I have not forgotten this promise. I lie. I did forget it. It slipped my mind like a trained
theologian slips hard questions, just like the preterist on Ace, or easy ones about the Trinity. But if the truth of God abounds in my lie, why am I still being judged as a sinner? I promised you last week that I would be writing our collective hands over how badly God hates false witness. Why? So that we can hunger for truth, detect and dismiss liars, and thus prepare our heads and hearts for the greatest revelations available to humanity. Allah, Romans 3:21, and onwards. In the interest of keeping you guessing and possibly grousing, I will fulfill my latest promise at the expense of my former one, for now. If this seems counterintuitive, simply think the other way. The most important thing in the world is truth. It is so important that Jesus Christ personified himself as truth with the following words, I am the truth. I like how he got to the point. If Jesus is the truth, and you love Jesus so much that you want to hug him, then you must also hug the truth. Sorry, the two are not sold separately. If perchance the truth comes your way and you hate it, you reject it in favor of tradition, I can only conclude that you don't love Jesus as much as you say you do. If you loved him, you'd love the truth. Remember, God packages them, Jesus and the truth, as a unit. What is right? Please take a moment today to forget about everything else and ask God for truth. Tell him this. No matter what it costs me, I want truth. I realize the hard thing I've just asked of you. God is going to honor it, though. That's what scares you. I know. People like comfort zones. As the saying goes, I've got my mind made up. Please don't disturb me with facts. Facts are often large stones dropped into the peaceful pool of ignorance. 1 minute you're floating along on the pink air mattress of your personal reality, then the next thing you know, you're rocketing toward. Go ahead, Caleb. Left-hand side.
Right, so a strange shore on a tidal wave. The truth threatening to drown you. Relax and ride. You're not going to die. Truth doesn't kill, it thrills. You can only be better off. Everyone eventually gets the glorious truth poured over their heads. So it's a pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. Truth hurts and scares in the short term, but small incremental shots of it inoculate against the wham-bang clabbering of the guaranteed future megadose. God is refining our desires so that we crave truth above all else. Once you get used to it, learning the truth about yourself and about God will eventually make life easier. It will save you the work of constantly presenting yourself as someone you're not, or presenting God as someone who deep down you know he can't be. Denying the essential self, either yours or God's, is hard work. This is why the glorified Christ said to Paul, it is hard for you to kick against the goads. Acts 26:14, in his former life, Saul strutted his stuff upon the stage as the perfect Pharisee. It cost him dearly, however. Blamed the conscience, Saul constantly stiff-armed the nagging inner voice, truth, banging for attention, saying something ain't quite right here. This is harder, or at least equal to fighting gravity. Gravity pushes from...
Whose turn?
That'll be yours, Catherine.
Without it, 2.14 pounds per square inch. I theorize that truth pushes from within at significantly higher pressure. It pushes up from the conscience. We end up expending as much or more energy pushing truth down as we do pushing gravity up. No wonder we're exhausted and need a drink. Get it over with. Jump off the cliff of truth. The landing will be fine because it ends in the arms of Jesus Christ. The seriousness of false witness. Be a decent human being and stop relaying disparaging tidbits about other people without looking hard into the case and then determining the value of spilling your guts. Please show God the same courtesy. Don't babble things about him unless you can prove your assertions from a proper translation. Having grasped fundamental rules of interpretation, language, and common sense, the following passage from Deuteronomy demonstrates just how deeply God hates false witnesses. I could wish we were subject to the Mosaic law in this particular, as it would spare so many people so much pain. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 16 to 21. If a false witness rises against any man to testify against him of wrongdoing, then both men in the controversy shall stand before Yahweh, before the priests and the judges who serve in those days, and the judges shall make careful inquiry. Indeed, if the witness is a false witness who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. So you shall put away the evil from among you, and those who remain shall hear and fear, and hereafter they shall not again commit such evil among you. Your eye shall not pity, life shall be for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. In other words, God so hates the life-destroying crime of false witness that if on the heels of a careful inquiry a person is found to have been bearing false witness, the accuser receives the consequence due to the accused. The accuser receives the consequence due the accused. What? Due the accused had the accused actually been found guilty of the crime. No. What a righteous law. Bring on the stones. Say goodbye to hands, feet, and eyes. Were such a law applicable today, far fewer unfounded accusations would unnecessarily torture people. Anyone with a grudge against another can nowadays simply accuse that person of wrongdoing. There are no, and while I'm going to go and get my coffee, I need my coffee.
Coffee
Okay.
break.
I need my coffee.
So, have you been watching most of the conference, or have you just been watching bits here and now, Caleb?
I didn't watch very much today.
Oh, okay. But the parts that you did watch, what's your favorite part about it? Like, what's your favorite part? Like, who going up there and making a speech? What's been your favorite part?
Which one my favorite part? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, Scott's ones were really good. Also, Richard as well. Both of them were making really good ones. I like Seth's one as well. He was talking about his skateboarding friend, who I forget the name of, but I'm very bad with names. I was making, there's so many people out there that are close to us, like our best friends, who aren't believers, but they're very, they've got that love of God, and they have the love of God in a increment. Obviously not in the same way that we do, but they have it in them, and you can just see that in them. They're a lot different than the people of the world. I think Seth was making that point, and it was a really good talk. That was definitely my favorite from Seth. And Scott's ones were all good as well. The way that he had the whiteboard, and he was saying, so Christians like to get you to believe you have to be baptized, you have to believe the right things, or you have to say this and do that, and you have to believe to be saved, and all this stuff. It was very good. The way that he describes things, very good. And Richard's ones were very good as well.
I've barely even watched any of the conference, to be honest. Yeah. But anyway, shall we continue?
We can't all be ACL.
Yep, we can't all be Ace Feel. I am not 70 years old. And hopefully I don't make it to 70. I think it's me going now. So is it left-hand side?
Oh, what are we up to?
Yeah, it's me going.
I believe
think
that's
it's left-hand side. Consequences today for accusers found to be liars. Apparently, it takes God to devise and employ the simple but effective deterrent of disciplining false witnesses. So, since such a thing is of God, we've naturally just discarded it. Anyone with a grudge can sling whatever mud they want, carte blanche. If it all turns out to be lies, oh well, damage done, and the accuser skates. For some people, damage is all they want. They so hate another, or they so wish to excuse or even project their own crimes upon an innocent person, that lies become an acceptable means to dubious ends. Why not? If there are no consequences, but it's the damage to the conscience its own consequence, yes, assuming the conscience to be alive and well. I know we're living under an administration of grace, but God still hates false witness so much as he does murder. Since we're under grace, does God now love murder? In God's mind, slandering someone is akin to sticking a knife into the victim's heart and twisting it. This is why, in the Mosaic Law, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter was to be established. No one was to be condemned by the single testimony of a crazy person, or a person with a grudge, or a person vested in self-defense or personal advancement at the expense of another. You can see that with such a righteous law in place, you had better be sure of your facts. They had better be facts. An esteemed panel of righteous judges would be standing by to investigate your claim. If your claims were bogus, you were going to be found out. In which case, why would you do it? You don't mind losing an eye, a tooth. You like big hard rocks? If your claims were true, then there would be no need to tremble while sauntering past the stoning pit. Big rocks do hurt. You can ask the rock. False prophets, for instance, were stoned. If back in the day you accused Jeremiah of prophesying falsely, every prophecy would be tested. You'd find yourself kneeling blindfolded in the stoning pit. You'd imagined for the righteous man you detested. Did you notice what happened to Ham in the book of Esther? Esther.
Esther. Go ahead, Caleb. On the right side.
Oh, the king hung him on the same gallows he designed for
Mordecai.
Mordecai, done properly. It's hard but sweet justice. God will reinstitute such a principle during the 1,000-year kingdom. It will happen again at the great white throne. Treachery is accounted for and answered for either now or later at the great white throne. I'm not saying Christ didn't die for sin. Of course he did. Christ's sacrifice is what keeps the race from dying and staying dead. In the meantime, that is, in the interim, between now and eternal life for everyone, 1 Corinthians 15:26-28, God rights wrongs. He does it both for the sake of the accuser and the accused. Whatever means he employs toward this end are righteous means. He's God. I wish the righteous rule existed not only in our modern courtrooms, but among the ecclesia. Would-be accusers facing such real risk would have to objectively analyze even small bits of mud before arming their slingshots. Believers are not immune to hasty and haughty judgments. Paul mocked the Corinthians for being too weakened and wish-washy to judge among themselves. 1 Corinthians 6:1-16. Believers also hastily judge God. If you can believe that, they are also so I can't say it.
Audacious.
Audacious as to put God on the witness stand. Why do you act the way you do, God? I can recommend this practice. Paul puts it this way, that thou mayest be conquering when thou art being judged. Romans 3:4. You want to judge God? Go ahead, me. I'll be standing over here.
One more page, I think. Oh, 2 more pages. Yeah? Okay. Diligent inquiry. Notice that God required all judges in Israel to exercise diligent inquisition. Here's Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 12-15. If you hear someone in one of your cities which Yahweh your Elohim gives you to dwell in, saying, corrupt men have gone out from you, and entice the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other Elohim, which you have not known, then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently. And if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination was committed among you, you shall surely strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it, all that is in it and its livestock with the edge of the sword. And again in Deuteronomy 17:2-5, if there is found among you with any of your gates which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, a man or a woman who has been wicked in the sight of Yahweh,
in the sight of Yahweh your Elohim, in transgressing his covenant, who has gone and served other Elohim and worshipped them, either the sun or moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, and it is told you, and you hear of it, then you shall inquire diligently. And if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination has been committed in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has committed that wicked thing, and shall stone to death that man or woman with stones. This is Old Testament truth. But the principle of due diligence applies today and is equally rewarding and just as ultimately damaging when ignored. Luke writes in Acts 17:10-11. Now the brethren immediately sent out both Paul and Silas by night to Berea, who are away, coming along into the synagogue of the Jews. Now there were more noble than those in Thessalonica who received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures day by day to see if these have it thus. In the circumcision gospel, judgment begins at the household of Elohim, 1 Peter 4:17. For the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of Elohim. And if it begins with us first, what will be the end of those who do not obey the gospel of Elohim? The Pauline equivalent would be 1 Corinthians 6:2. Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world will be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? The principle behind God's use of judgment is consistent throughout Scripture. All judgment is preceded by diligent inquiry. Does God follow his own principles? He does. Note the proceedings at the Great White Throne judgment in Revelation 20:11-12, before a single soul can be cast into the lake of fire. And I perceived a great white throne, and him who is sitting upon it, from whose face earth and heaven fled, and no place was found for them. And I perceived the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne. And scrolls were opened, and another scroll was opened, which is the scroll of life. And the dead were judged by that which is written in the scrolls, in accord with their acts.
Okay, so a little bit left now. The purpose in enduring lies. Many of you have been lied about. It hurts. Satan wishes to destroy you as he destroyed Christ before you. He sought to destroy the author of our salvation by means of false witnesses. These were gathered against him before the chief priests and succeeded in condemning him. What Satan did not bank on was that the death of Christ was God's means of conciliating the world to himself. Thus, there were a greater righteous purpose behind the unrighteous act that, in fact, could not occur apart from the unrighteous act. The same principle applies to those who believe or invent and disseminate evil, unfounded things about you. These lies can ultimately benefit you. For one thing, God is working altogether for the good of those who are loving God, who are called according to his purpose. For another thing, we members of the body of Christ are called to reconcile the heavens to God. Colossians 1:20, Ephesians 1:10, Ephesians chapter 3 verse 9-10. The heavens, like the earth, are distended with wickedness. Ephesians 6:12. To administrate in the midst of such an environment of deceit, innuendo, vileness, selfishness, God trains his future administrators to endure similar environments here on earth. We train for adjudication among the celestial beings by enduring similar evil from fellow humans. Since we are to exercise grace among the celestials, we are called upon to exercise it here. Thus, we are exhorted to not only endure evil at the hands of false witnesses, but to answer evil with good. Romans chapter 12 verse 21, and to actually bless those perpetrating the crimes. Romans chapter 12 verse 14. One cannot endure deceit and overcome deceivers with good, the methods such rulers will employ in the celestial realm, unless one becomes a victim of that very deceit. God carefully arranges this. He is doing this for us, not to us. Thus the need for liars now. There is no shortage. Thus the need for false witnesses now. They are easy to come by. Damaged people with seared conscience abound. Thus, when you find yourself a victim of false witness, of accusation without inquiry, try to find it within yourself to thank your God and Father. He is preparing you for a mighty task beyond. For the vessels of dishonor, not so much. MZ. Yeah.
Oh.
That's it. That is it.
Zender did a great job writing this. So I'm going to say that, though.
Yeah,
Yep.
That was an interesting one, especially with the camels. I was not expecting that.
Expect the unexpected with Martin Zender. Yep. It looks like it's very quiet today, Liam.
Yeah, nice.
On the
little-
conference. You're not going to get very many viewers today.
No, that's okay. People can watch it back later.
Yeah, good stuff.
Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for listening in. You guys are awesome.
All
Love,
right,
grace,
great
and
peace and love.
the eyes of your hearts
Grace
haven't
and
been
peace.
enlightened. We'll be out here soon, guys. God willing.
Guys, bye. See ya.